Can you hear me, Suhail?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry I'm late a bit.
That's all right. That's all right. All
Actually,
okay?
yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry, my camera's not on. 1 second. Um, yes. My cat has joined me. I had dropped you an email earlier today, a few hours ago, to see if we could start earlier, but I guess you were busy on other things and didn't see it. Um, because I've got a request. I just wanted to finish a little bit earlier today.
Okay.
Um, So is that possible? And we can do an hour or so now, and then catch up tomorrow,
Okay, we can do that. We can do that. No problem.
if that's all right. Or catch up over a couple of days. It doesn't have to be all caught up tomorrow. But I
Okay.
think we've got. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. No problem. Okay.
So let's dive into the next chapter.
Uh, yeah, exactly. Yesterday we were talking about PMO in the last slide. Today
Yes.
we are moving ahead and we are going to get introduced to another concept which is called OPM, which is organizational project management. Okay, when we talk about organizational project management, how do you think does it differ from project management?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I think one of the slides we're talking about yesterday, the day before, organizational project maturity and so on. It's especially applicable, I guess, to medium to larger size organizations that have medium to large size portfolios of change. Um, so
Okay.
it's how they get their arms around the broader capability and execution of numerous projects.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right.
So,
You see, what is happening here that we are uh, when we say project management, we are referring to the management of a single project.
yeah,
But when we say organizational project management, this is the whole mindset of driving change in the organization through the use of projects, programs, and portfolios. So when I say organization project management, I am talking about project management, program management, portfolio management, and a bit of operations management as well. Got it?
yep, clear. Except for the operations part, that part is that just there's a small layer of operational management required to keep the lights on for the change side.
Yes, but you see, as far as the projects and programs are concerned, you know that they are of limited duration. They will end someday.
Yeah,
But program is something which is more operational in nature because it doesn't have an end date. A portfolio is kind of going on and on forever. So
correct.
portfolio is to deal with the with some kind of operations itself. Whereas program has got program activities, projects have got project activities. They start and end at some point in time. Portfolio is generally looking after all the projects and programs, and it will not end anywhere. Therefore, the work of portfolio can be considered as operational.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Now, this whole system of projects, programs, and portfolios, how they are configured in an organization, is basically designed for the value delivery. I said that project drives the change, right? So if project is the smallest part and it drives the change, then program, which is a larger thing, it drives a bigger change, and all these changes are orchestrated by the portfolio. So whole of this organizational project management is kind of a strategy execution framework which actually drives change in an organization for that matter. I hope you understand this concept.
I
And naturally,
do.
naturally
I do.
you have actually worked as a program manager, as a portfolio manager. You must be knowing all that very easily.
Yeah, I might be slightly out of date in certain words. I've done all those roles. Let me just clarify one thing. Oftentimes, and I know it's kind of changing now, you think about projects with a kind of a more narrow focus, specifically delivering, as we said earlier on, deliverables or products, services, or results.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounded traditionally more kind of narrow and output related, while programs were more outcome related, and portfolios were more, they were a mixture of different things depending on how an organization used a portfolio. Sometimes they were strategy and pillars or divisions of a company or
Mm-hmm.
departments and so on. So they weren't trying to deliver a singular output or outcome. They were trying to align a designated area, whether it's strategic pillar or whether it's a department's mixed bag of initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that still the case? Is that
Yeah,
broadly true?
yeah, it is right. But you see, the word outcome cannot be associated with a program. What is the word should be associated with a program?
Oh, here we go. Was this something you were saying earlier on, where you said something like plan driven for a project and stuff like that? And
No,
value driven or something?
no.
No? Okay.
I was talking about output and outcome. This happens in a project. Outputs and
Or
outcome.
benefits, ultimate value
Benefit.
delivery.
Exactly, exactly. Actually, every project has some benefits and every program has some benefits, right?
Yeah.
So, the responsibility of the program manager is totally to deliver those benefits, and program manager is not concerned about the output or outcome. They are looking at a larger target, and they are actually responsible for the whole life even after a project has ended. So program manager becomes responsible for realizing those benefits which the project has, the outputs and outcomes which project has produced, translating them into benefits and then handing them over to the customer, right? So if you have got three projects in your program, then naturally the whole responsibility of realizing all those benefits lies now with the program manager. And once all the benefits from all the projects have been achieved, then these benefits are unified to conclude that the program benefits have also been achieved. Now, program benefits are synergetic in nature, and it is very much possible that this is not simply the sum of the benefits of all the project, but it could be even more.
Gotcha. 2 + 2 = 5. I get
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Um, okay, but a program manager, maybe I'm drifting outside of the course now, but a program manager therefore has a longer lifespan.
Definitely.
The program isn't never ending, but it is it has the program manager has responsibilities for benefits, realization, measurement, and so on. But in that diagram in portfolio B,
Mm-hmm.
you've got B1, program B1. Yeah, I get that. But then
Mm-hmm.
you got on the left of that, you've got a bunch of projects. There's no program manager there.
Mm-hmm.
So each of the projects would then who's there to measure the realization
Mm-hmm.
of the benefits, the ultimate benefits.
Right.
We talked yesterday that it was more probably operations would be looking at that, but in this context, it could be a portfolio manager. Is that what we're saying?
Yes and no. Why? Because there could be independent projects. There could be independent projects which do not come under any program or a portfolio, right? That is the rightmost projects. They are those projects which are classically not under any program, are not even under any category of portfolio. Oh yes, you can say that the main portfolio of the organization will look after the benefits of a project, independent project. So these are the independent projects. These are the projects which are coming under some program.
I was speaking about portfolio B. I think is that a typographical
Yeah.
error? Should that
No,
say
no, no, no,
that
no.
should say program C1, not B1.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm getting there. Now, the main portfolio of the organization. Okay, let me describe that. If you have got a number of projects and programs running in your organization, what is your portfolio? If you have,
That's a question.
yeah,
So you've got a number of projects and programs running in your organization. What is
yes.
your portfolio? It's the collation of all of those.
Yes, of course. And that means your portfolio, whether it is described or not, all the projects and programs in the organization automatically come under a centralized portfolio. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, but larger organizations which are looking after a number of disciplines for managing projects and programs. For example, there are construction projects going on in your organization, there are IT projects going on there, there are some welfare projects going on there, and a single portfolio manager might not be able to handle them all. So, what we do is we break them down into sub portfolios. So, the levels you see here are actually not the main portfolios, they are the sub portfolios. Like portfolio A, portfolio B, they are the sub portfolios of the main portfolio, that is the highest level portfolio.
Yep.
Although that is not shown here, but it is understood that anything which doesn't have anyone on top, like these projects on the right hand side, they are actually coming under the main portfolio. This program is coming under the main portfolio, but portfolio has two sub portfolios, namely A and B. The main
Yep.
portfolio has been divided into two sub-portfolios, A and B. But still, the main portfolio may have certain project programs and projects which are independent and they are directly reporting to the main portfolio. In example 1, portfolio A has got a number of programs but no projects as such, and each program has their own projects. In example, where the portfolio B is shown, we have got some projects directly coming under the sub-portfolio B. They are not part of any program. On the other hand, program B1 comes directly under sub-portfolio B, and program B1 has its own projects. I hope that makes sense now.
Yes, it does. Completely. The only question is who's maybe it's covered under another chapter in our training course here is who's managing the benefits
Oh, yes.
realization
Yes.
period. You were saying the program manager does it for the projects underneath him or
Yes.
her.
Yes.
It's who's doing it for the projects that don't have a program manager. Is it a portfolio manager or is it an operations manager or it could be
Okay.
either?
Well, probably I answered this question when I was defining the project. You
Okay.
remember the very, very initial discussion
Yeah.
we had?
Yeah. I do. I do.
I
Yeah.
said that every project has benefits, but those benefits are not the responsibility of the project manager to realize, right? And I did answer that. Then who is responsible for realizing the benefits of a project?
Well, I thought it was the business
Yes, number
that
one,
you hand over to.
the business, yeah, of course, you're right. The customer or whomsoever we hand over, they are responsible for realizing the benefits, although we are supposed to transition it to them in such a way that they are efficient enough to run it, right? We would not confuse them by just leaving the output of the project to them and they don't know how to do or how to take advantage of it. And because they have to realize the benefit, we have to transition the output of the project to these people as if they can efficiently start running the show and ultimately be able to realize the benefits. That is
Gotcha.
in case deliverable has been handed over to customer or another party. But what if it is within our own organization? This this project was run for the benefit of our own organization. That means some department of our own organization must have taken over the output of the project. Agreed?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they become responsible for benefit realization. Whether it is this case or the customer case, doesn't matter. But when I was describing the business analyst, I also said that a business analyst role starts much before the project manager had started working, right? Just from the inception of the idea of the project, the business analyst was involved, and long after the project has been handed over, business analyst will keep an eye on what? He will keep an eye on the benefits as if they get realized as per the initial requirements of the customer. So business
Yeah.
analyst also has overseeing responsibility for the benefit management. So even if a project is not under a program or a portfolio, projects, the benefits of the projects are somehow being managed, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you understand
Sure.
this concept, let us understand that all these projects, programs, and portfolios, which we jointly call organizational project management, fall under the internal environment of the organization. An internal environment of the organization does also include the operations. There are some operations also going on in the organization. And all
Yeah.
of these things, the operations of the organization, the OPM, which is projects, programs, and portfolios, they form up the whole internal environment, which is being impacted by the external environment. So external environment are the forces from outside of the organization, which are affecting everything in the project, in the organization. The operations are impacted by the external environment. The portfolios, programs, and projects are being affected by them. But operations are separate than these change-related initiatives. I mean, when I say change-related initiatives, I mean all big and small change-related initiatives. I'm not only referring to the projects, but to programs and portfolios. In other words, organizational project management. Got it?
Yeah.
One more thing, the concept of organizational project management, although they are three separate disciplines, project management is a separate, complete and separate standard. by PMI. Program management is complete and separate standard, and portfolio management is complete and separate standard. Now, how these three disciplines or three standards they glue together. To put them all together, we need to have another fourth element. In addition to projects, programs, and portfolios, we need to have uh, something called uh, organizational enablers. Organizational enablers are like internal factors, like which actually join the portfolio, program, and project, and these are like the cultural values in the organization, like the environment. You see, the internal environment, right? These things bind the projects, programs, and portfolios together into a one big whole. And that one big whole we usually call organizational project management. So classically speaking, this is a strategy execution framework. Why? Strategy execution meaning bringing change in the organization, right? So strategy keeps changing throughout the life of the project. And as any change is to be implemented, we need to have, at the bottom level, we need to have projects. And projects could be part of a program, and programs could be part of a portfolio, right? And we could have portfolios and sub-portfolios, programs and sub-programs, and projects and sub-projects in this whole setting, depending on the complexity of the system, right?
Yep.
So this is how I define OPM. And I must tell you, just like we have PMBOK guide as the standard for project management, we also have a separate standard for program management, separate standard for portfolio management, and a separate standard for organizational project management, which binds it all together. That discusses the big picture. And within the OPM standard, we have a discussion on the fourth element, which we call the organizational enablers, right? You might find a reference of that in your PMBOK or your program management standard or portfolio management standard. About there could be a mention about the organizational enablers. But if you want to understand the dynamics of organizational enablers a little bit more in detail, probably you may have to refer to the standard for organizational project management. But PMBOK just give you a little, a brief sentence description of what these organizational enablers are, right?
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have understood that, probably this is one topic which I suppose you would be knowing already. You would have applied it. Organizational structures. Are you aware about these different types of organizational structures?
Yes, I believe I am.
Good. So, what is a functional organization?
That's by discipline. In the broadest sense of the word, HR, finance, IT,
Exactly.
business divisions built around a specific area, like a product maybe.
Right.
And then, yeah, so functional would be a simple hierarchy, I think, generally speaking. So
Right.
you'd have each silo reporting up to bosses and reporting up to an ultimate
Exactly.
boss with,
Exactly.
yeah, that's,
Yes, you are very
yeah.
right about it. You see, uh, basically, project management is not in the DNA of an organization. The organization is basically structured to function, right? And those various departments you have in an organization, they are for running the operations of the organization, right? The main focus of an organization is to run their operations. So a functional organization is tailored around the operations by defining various functions, various departments, and they are organized in such a manner that operations can be handled efficiently. Having said that, does that mean that organization doesn't require change?
Of course it does, yeah.
It does require change, but when we are focused on functional kind of a structure, we are completely ignoring the need for change, and we are designing the whole organization in a operational point of view. In such an organization, which is classically functional, if you want to bring a change, you want to run a project, how difficult it would be.
Very.
Why? Because the people required for the project, the equipment, the resources, the finances required for the project is not, by default in the DNA of the organization. All the funding of the organization is designed to be distributed amongst various departments, and departments are organized in such a way that they could perform their operations in the best possible manner. Now, when I'm trying to do an experiment to prove something or to find a new way of doing something, it is not a departmental issue. So I just can't be doing my project based on the people, the resources of finance department, or based on the resources of any one of the departments. But naturally, because we are experimenting, we need to have specializations, probably from all various departments. I may have to have a financial expert working in my project. I need to have engineer working with me from a technical department, and so on and so forth. So project is kind of a referring to different specializations from all over the organization, meaning from different departments of the organization. If it was a functional organization and I was a project manager, I would require people from all over the organization. But because organization is structured in a functional manner and they have got their functional bosses, they probably won't spare that workforce or that resources to me. Because in a functional organization, all the importance is on the functionality and the operations of the organization, and they consider the project to be a secondary and unimportant thing happening. From the point of view of a function, and a project is a waste of time. Do you agree with me?
I 100% understand. Yep.
So therefore, even if somebody has realized that we need to run a project to change something in the organization, when it comes to resourcing that project, there is no one single authority which is going to help the project manager. Why? Because right from top of the organization to bottom, everybody thinks project as an unnecessary venture, and it is not really required. This is going to eat up our resources, which are otherwise being productive in their functional departments. So therefore, they are not very docile to the discipline of project management. Right?
Yep.
I am not saying that in a purely functional organization, a change cannot happen or a project cannot be done, but it would be really an uphill task for a project manager to get things done in such an organization. What is the desire of a project manager if you ask him, what do you want? How do you want to be to manage your project? So what is the ideal response of a project manager?
Well, in other words, the question being, what is the ideal organizational structure for a project manager?
No, no,
Or
no. What is the type of organization structure a project manager would prefer? What is the environment in which a project manager would like to work the
but
best?
probably project orientated or else matrix, I
Exactly.
guess.
Exactly. Project oriented is the right answer because project manager needs what? He needs authority, he needs complete delegation, he needs dedicated workforce, right? And he needs everything in control. Nobody, he should not be answerable to anyone except for maybe the sponsor or the CEO of the organization. That is the most powerful project manager you can talk about. If
In a project oriented organization, do you still have like a thing like a finance department, a HR department?
uh,
Or is that more the composite?
classically speaking, no, not composite. Classically speaking, project oriented is the ideal structure for a project, for running a project, and that may not have any functions at all. Classically speaking, a project oriented organization may not have any other functions at all. Whereas a functional organization does have all the functions and no facility to accommodate a project,
Yeah, but then
right?
it doesn't seem realistic a project orientated organization could exist because how do you do all the other things to keep the lights on?
Both of them, functional and project oriented, are unrealistic because how could there be an organization which does not bring change in itself? So, functional is also a myth.
Okay.
Similarly, how a project oriented organization would manage itself when they don't have any functions? So, again, a myth, right?
Okay.
But
Okay.
what you will actually find in any organization that there would be some kind of a combination between the functional and project oriented, and that could be uh, a composite structure which you were referring to. So classically speaking, I would say in most of the time when you come across an organization that is a composite structure, maybe, and why composite? Because uh, some parts of the organization are more docile to managing projects. Other functions like the finance people, they are not interested in running a project under them, but they are ready to support it in a way. So it is a composite structure which is accommodative, right?
Okay.
So
So composite structure, if I can just summarize what I think a composite and a matrix is, a composite structure is, let's say, it looks at the first glance kind of functional.
right,
Hang on. In parts, it's clearly functional, and in
mhm,
parts, it's clearly project orientated,
exactly,
or even part very functional and part matrix. Who knows? But
exactly,
it's a composite of something above. But a matrix organization is at one vertical, it looks functional, but it has a matrix side to it, whereby the let's say the project side is
yes,
it has a mandate to go across those
exactly,
functions and take people out of their day to day and into
yes,
the project world.
yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay. I got
you're
that.
talking about the matrix, right? You're talking about the matrix.
Matrix. Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
So
but
I see the two differences.
in the function, there is no connection between the project related work and the operations related work, right? and therefore we have a lot of difficulty. In a matrix structure, we probably can find a middle ground where probably the projects can also happen, can coexist while the functions are existing. So yes, of course, the structure you have given for the matrix, and matrix also has three types. You know that?
Okay.
There could be a,
I can think of two, but you can give me three. Yeah.
yes, of course. Tell me.
Well, I'm guessing that the two of matrix could be where the functional looks dominant and the matrix,
Exactly.
sorry, the project side is subordinate or looks like that, and it's kind of
Mhm.
temporarily borrowing, or it's the other way around where projects are dominant and the
Yes,
functions are secondary looking, and that they
exactly.
have their own defined approach. And I've seen that in an agile
Exactly.
world. I've seen that in different ways. What's the third?
That is where you strike a balance between both, where there is a common understanding that what are the responsibilities of project and what are the responsibilities of the functional managers, and they agree on some common ground. That is called a balanced structure, balanced matrix structure. But if it is in favor of the project, we would say it is a strong matrix structure. And if it
Gotcha.
is in favor of the function, we call it a weak matrix structure because we are naming them from the project, from the interest of the project. So a strong matrix structure is leaning towards the project manager. A weak matrix structure is leaning towards the functional side of it. And a balanced is where somehow we can strike a balance between the two. Both jobs can happen comfortably and without hindrance, and uh, we strike a balance. Ideal environment for a project could be the project oriented, but as I said, that is a myth and that might not exist at all. So we could either be in a strong matrix, in a balanced matrix, or a weak matrix. Because again, functional organization, though it looks realistic, but if it doesn't change, if it doesn't has project, then it is also a myth. So all the matrix structures are doable, but best of them all is the strong matrix. And balanced matrix, I would consider that that is the best relationship we could strike between the functional manager and the project manager. That is the best relationship, which is the balanced structure. Now coming over to the composite, a composite structure could be a combination of all of these in a single structure. Actually, if you visit any organization, try to study their structure, you will find projects are also happening and operations are also happening. But are they really and classically balanced? No, they are not. They may be leaning towards one side, but at the same time, if you look closely, you see there are departments within the organization which are have almost project oriented. There are departments within the organization which exercise a balanced kind of a structure, and there are areas which are purely functional, and there are areas which are kind of weak metric. But now, exactly how they look like, we don't know. They could exist in any combination. And because of the complicacy of all possibilities, we just call it a composite structure. So if you ask me, I would say every organization structure could be a composite structure. It could have a flavor of everything or only one thing, but we generally call it a composite structure. Got it?
Okay. Thank you. Well said.
Most welcome. This is how we compare these three major categories: functional, matrix, and project oriented. Naturally, you understand, it is very easy to understand. Functional manager is heading the functional department. He is the boss. He is the guy because team members, if at all, the people are allocated to the project, they are under command of the functional manager. They are reporting to the functional manager, and they do not really respect a lot the orders coming from project manager. So project manager almost has no say in it. I would rather say that in a functional department, there is no role such as a project manager. They just have a temporary kind of a role, which you may say a project coordinator or something. Or even that job is being done by the functional manager on a very low priority. Secondly, project manager role seldom is identified there, and that is not even a full-time role. This is a part-time role of the project manager, where maybe this the person who has been nominated as a project manager in a functional organization is a kind of a part of a function himself. He could be a functional manager, but additionally he is handling the duties of the project manager temporarily and on part-time basis. This is very usual. We have seen that the project managers are not dedicated. They are not specifically assigned to the projects, but they are actually one of the functional managers may be nominated, or a person under the functional manager may be nominated to manage the project. Got it?
Yep.
And last but not the least is the control of the project manager over the project team, almost non-existent in case of a functional. Project manager is not the boss. He doesn't have any control over the team. In a metric structure, whether it is weak, balanced, or strong, generally, because there are more than one bosses, the people are responding to the functional manager as well as the project manager. So they may have conflicted loyalties. That is quite understood. Then the team members may be reporting to either one of them. Well, if it is a strong matrix, naturally they're reporting more towards the project manager side. And if it is a weak structure, they are reporting more towards the functional manager. And if there is a balanced structure, then probably their duties are divided in such a way that they know that these are the duties we'll be performing with the project manager, and these are the duties we'll be performing with the functional manager. So people would know that, and in a balanced metric, things can be comparatively better. But in a project-oriented structure, project manager is the one who is the boss. Team is reporting to them because they don't have a functional manager at all. A role of project manager in a metric structure could be, in a weak metric structure, it could be just like functional, but it could be a full-time project manager as well. But in a project-oriented structure, it has to be a full-time role. As far as the teams are concerned, teams work part-time on functional and metric structures, but there is a dedicated team for a project-oriented structure. Control of the project manager is medium in metric structures and high in the project-oriented structure, right?
Yep.
So we don't have to discard any one of these. All of these things do exist, but I just mentioned to you a functional organization structure is like, that is purely operations related. And that means that their mindset is not easy to accept a project. On the other hand, a purely project-oriented structure, they frown upon the functional managers if there have to be one. Whereas metric structure accommodates both breeds of the project manager and the functional manager, and somehow we can do the things, make the things happen. So this is the organizational structure. Okay. I don't know if you like to give your opinion on that. Let it be the last slide because you have to leave.
No. No, let's keep on going for 15 minutes, and
Okay.
then we can stop.
Okay. Anyways, any opinion about this? Uh, think of your current or a recent project. Can you identify the organization structure type and describe how it affects your project in following ways? You can comment on that.
Yeah, I've worked in about 5 different organizations, and I've put in place some of these structures, and I've been in them as a project manager and as a head of projects and so on. So I've seen them work and not work, depending on the case. I uh, would agree that functional and project oriented completely are unrealistic. Probably is true that any large organization is probably composite indeed. Maybe a medium or small could be matrixed. I was the global head of projects for one where I had all the projects, programs and portfolios sat under me, and we had to move we moved it to a balanced matrix, um,
Okay.
and had to overcome, even still, it was a process of trying to uh, still, the project manager had certain authority, um, but the legacy of it being probably a functional organization before I came along, more functional or weak matrix, meant it was a continued struggle to try to bring that organization to a balanced matrix. And in certain
Mhm.
instances, it was strong. So we had a mixture of balanced and strong, probably. Um, I think that more and more so, if you look at the world that with the project economy,
Mhm.
see statistics out there that now in this decade, 2020 to 2030, we're going to see more and more projects, not less and less. So more need for project managers or similar. You can imagine that we must become more strong matrix orientated, or organizations need to be. They need to become far more projectized in general. Some are already there, um, but those that lean on functional or weak matrix, I think are at risk of losing the strategic innovation race in this world, where innovation and change are happening at light speed and bigger volume at faster speed. So it's necessary for organizations, whether they are composite or matrix, to give space to a strong matrix,
Exactly.
um, where they can at all, because innovation and change is now existential for them. They will be eliminated if they don't give space to that. So my experience uh, is is biased, I suppose, because I'm a change agent.
Mhm.
Um, and I have sympathy for functions because I think that they are being stretched too much to do both, to do the functional operational activity and then step out of that. Whether it's some sort of subject matter expert in every organization, you seem to go along and you see these great subject matter experts, um, even with a great attitude, are just being stretched and given impossible challenges to
Mhm.
do. to keep the lights on and operate the organization and keep the day-to-day going, but also to step out of that day-to-day and become project orientated. And in another organization where I ran, again, it was not only delivering a major project and program, but it was also changing the way they worked. We realized that that was so impossible to get people to split their day that we made the brutal negotiation and decision to take out some of the SMEs of the organization that we needed for the span of the project and harm the day to day by basically negotiating it, but agreeing that the best people were going to go onto the project and the second best people, for want of a better word, were going to stay in operations to keep that going. And that was ruthless, necessary, sponsored by the CEO. And it meant, and we even went so far as we had one major headquarter building to rent a different building 2 streets away, and physically remove the persons that we needed and move them into the project office building, and keep them away from their colleagues so that they could, not completely keep them away, but physically they defaulted to going into a different workspace, which was an agile hybrid, you could call it, environment, and it needed them to sit with amongst a whole project organization. So that was brave. That was very successful. We proved at the end that we delivered our project mission and KPIs, but we did not damage business as usual. We didn't, that wasn't part of the objective of the project to not damage business as usual, but it turned out that, there were separate measures on that outside the project, and it showed that we did not damage business as usual, that in fact, it probably improved business as usual's resilience to and knowledge management. So yeah, good that you asked that question because it grounds what we just discussed.
Yeah, exactly. That was a very, very good and good discussion, and you exactly translated whatever we have talked about. I have one question. Is it possible to have a projectized organizational structure? How do you imagine a purely project-oriented organization running a project?
Yeah, I think I've seen that distantly, or I've heard stories about it. I don't think you can get close to projectized. I still don't think they really exist, but if they do exist, they exist in an area where perhaps they're in a very experimental mode, innovation and creation mode, and they aren't, or are very small. They're not caught up with maybe operating stuff. They're not caught up with massive organization. So it can happen, I think. I think you hear about it in the bigger world out there in Spotify in the past or something like that. There are organizations that become more and more project orientated. Now it can become a bit of a fake where an organization will claim to be project orientated and they'll use that language for really operational things, and it makes no sense.
Exactly.
I saw a bank do it, and they started making stuff up that they called their help desk a project and things like that. And it clearly wasn't a project. It was an ongoing service, but they ran sprints within a hybrid project environment, and it was a nonsense. So they damaged the mission because they used the wrong standards. They used, instead of using ITIL, they were using a Prince 2 or a Scrum methodology stuck together, and it was using the wrong language, the wrong tool for the job, the wrong framework for the job. So, but I guess you probably have seen more than I've seen, and maybe you can answer the question if you've seen real
Yeah.
project-oriented
Actually,
organizations.
when it comes to project-oriented organization, one thing comes to my mind. Like, let's take the example of World Health Organization. That is an operational body, that is a functional body, but their projects are running all around the world.
Yeah,
And
true.
projects and programs, both, they're running all around the world. And every project is like encapsulated into a independent project oriented environment. For example, they nominate a country manager for a country to lead all the projects and programs in that country. That means they don't have any functionality of their own, but they get funding to run a project in that country, run a program in that country. And this project director, or what do you call it, country director, comes to that country, hires their own building, right? He hires the building, hires the people, and then he
Get you.
starts the operation of the project, and that is completely project oriented. There is no interference from the WHO into their daily
Right,
working.
but the broader WHO, if you look at it in that context, probably
Yeah,
has function, operations and projects.
of course they
Yes,
are.
but there are parts that, yeah. So my wife works in Oxfam and previous development organizations similar to the WHO, I suppose you could say, heavily project oriented organizations, but they still have a
Exactly.
headquarters with HR, finance, legal, marketing, business
Definitely.
development.
Definitely.
Um, they still run projects that have to lean on those organizations where
Exactly.
they have a balanced matrix or whatever. So, but I get that. Yeah, I think that those companies that I've met CEOs of that are trying to innovate new products, new services, are startups and things like that. I've seen very projectized, and
Hmm.
they can almost ignore certain areas of day to day. They limit any thought of HR, finance, legal, marketing. They're off innovating something in small groups,
Yes.
and the CEO or and one other person are kind of running the show and just trying to but run it as a set of innovative projects. So that's it. If there's one more slide you want to do, we can do it. I don't know, or whether you want to
No,
pause.
I just want to discuss on this thing a little bit more, and then we
Okay.
conclude. I have in my mind a model, like, you have a project, and just like the example I gave you, I have assigned it to a project manager, and I created the whole facility of that project on self-accounting purposes. The project manager is supposed to manage his own affairs, his funding, his everything, all the functions which are required to be done for the conduct of the project. That will be handled by we'll provide him the funding. He would
Yeah.
do the resourcing himself. He will do the contracting himself. Everything is the responsibility of the project manager, and he is the boss, right? So that would be something which is more workable, more practical. And that is what I'm saying is, I used to be in one of the organizations in which my department was sent out on a mission to do something, and we as soon as they did that, they disengaged with us. They allocated us a funding, and they said, organize your everything, your self accounting. You will have your own audits, you will have everything on your own, but you will not be supported by the main organization's operations. So this
Yeah.
was a very good example of a totally project oriented organization in which I had all the power to run my show, right? And I had a mission, I had a kind of a project, and I had to accomplish that. And as soon as that job was done, this whole facility was dissolved and it merged back into the organization. I think you can
Gotcha.
relate to that. It is possible. So, although it may seem that project oriented is also a myth, but it can happen. And
Well,
functional
sorry, go ahead. I was going to add to that. Yeah.
And the functional myth is also like not really a myth then. You can say, well, if a organization is not running any project, it is still an organization. Although they are not good at bringing change, but sometimes they can run a small little project. Although project may not be given due importance and it may not be very successful, but a functional organization is more oriented towards the operations, but they can have a little bit of project management going on here and there.
One of the I did a leadership program, and I think they came up with seven different organizational structures rather than four.
Mm,
Um, but one of them that came to mind, which is basically another version of composite. I think they broke composite down into a couple of others, but it's where you almost take a company and you split it in two. And you build a big wall between the two so that you can run a more innovative world, maybe a more
mm,
project-oriented world. Like I just said, we went to a separate building to run a program.
mm,
Um, we divorced ourselves from the mothership to a point, but not completely. Other
mm,
ones, companies will almost set up a separate company to break from the culture without
mm,
damaging their current one and set up a really innovative hub and essentially give total authority to a project director and
mm.
uh, and then and then merge it back in with the mothership later on.
Exactly.
But to go fast,
Mm,
sometimes to go fast on an innovation, creating and not take a risk to the current organization, setting up a very kind of firewalled environment
mm,
um, as an organization can make a lot of sense. And I think that we probably see that in the world if we look hard at companies
yeah.
that they do that. I worked in Motorola,
Mm,
which for 12 years, and we were very process orientated, and it constrained innovation, or at least the process that we defined. It seemed to constrain innovation, but raise the bar on quality. But
okay.
they allowed they some senior managers saw this and created skunk works and black ops projects that were allowed to break most rules and
Mm,
exist in secret away from the mothership, and out of that came the last great innovation from Motorola, which was the Razor phone back in the late 1990s, I think,
okay.
or early 2000s. And it was a breaking the rules sort of program. But yeah, that's interesting. It's helped me ground that, so thank you.
I have one last example, and that is once I came across a Japanese person who was presenting at a PMI Congress, and he gave the idea of a modular organization. Probably you can relate to that.
A
He
modeler.
modular organization. They have research done on that, and they're doing that in Japan. And what they do is just like that we just discussed that they break out the project portion of it, and whole of the organization structured in modules, little cells, and those cells could be disengaged and put in another setting, and they can start doing their project. Once they have done their project, they come back and join, just like the example you have given.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay,
So
so how far behind are we now as a result of finishing early? How much do we have to catch up tomorrow?
uh, tomorrow, how much time do you have tomorrow? Can we have
Uh,
more
We can
time?
start. We can start 15 minutes early if you want, and end 15 minutes late if you want.
Okay, fine, fine.
Is that enough, or we can keep on going? I'll have to check my calendar. But if we start 15 minutes early and end 15 minutes late, will that catch us up?
I suppose we'll do that, but we are very slow right now because it's the first chapter, and I said there are a lot many concepts here, so that's why we are very slow, and we have to pick up the pace as well. So I
Okay. Well, we
would
can we can go faster and longer tomorrow if you like.
okay,
Um, So we can push each other.
yeah,
I'm keeping up. I'm not falling behind at the moment in understanding. So let's go faster tomorrow and see how that goes.
fine, fine.
Um, if so, will we start 15 minutes early and then
Uh,
at it's 15 minutes early is 12:45 Central European time, and
Yeah,
then we can go a half an hour longer or whatever
maybe.
we can do.
Okay, fine. That is great.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
see you tomorrow then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suhail. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.